right, come on in, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Just going to allow a few seconds here for the attendees to pop on in. Everybody can get situated a little bit. Here we're coming. Very good, very good. All right. Welcome, welcome. Okay, let me see here. Who all is coming in? This is great to see. Yes, welcome everybody. So I'm Aaron Hedges, Inheritance of Hope's COO, and we are looking forward to hearing from our CEO, Derek Milligan, this afternoon. It's going to be very fun to hear his stories and his vision. Just allowing a minute or so for people to get into the webinar and get situated. So in the webinar style of Zoom, you'll be able to see us as presenters, and we can see you, your names, and your chats. And we do welcome your chats all throughout the webinar. But you won't be seen on video or heard, so you can just relax and enjoy. But please do engage in the chat so we can really enjoy the chance to interact with Derek in this afternoon session. We may still have a few people join, but I think we've got a pretty good group here. So Derek, at this point, I'm gonna pass it off to you.
Thanks, Aaron, and thanks everyone for joining us as we look at the future of IoH. What's next? I wish I was sitting in your living room with you, so let's just try our best and pretend like that's what's happening today. If you do have questions as I'm sharing, I hope you'll submit them in the chat, and I look forward to a good discussion after I share my thoughts. If you'll indulge me, I know the topic here is the future of IoH, but before we look at the future, I'd like to take a look back. I live in the mountains in Western North Carolina, and I like to hike. And I view Inheritance of Hope's growth like climbing a mountain. The summit can often seem far in the distance, and I know it's important when I'm hiking to look back and see how far I've come. And I think that's important for us all to do as we think about Inheritance of Hope and where we are today. So let's take a minute to celebrate together. In 2003, Inheritance of Hope was simply an idea, a vision that was forming, starting with Kristen's diagnosis. I still remember the phone call in March of 2003, and there were very few details on that phone call. I remember exactly where we were standing, and the message was very clear though. It was, come to the hospital right now. This is very serious, and pack a bag. And that really began Kristen's desire to nurture our children through this, and ultimately led to expanding into Inheritance of Hope. And we've seen it resonate. What our children needed has resonated with families all across the country. In 2006, fast forward a few years, Inheritance of Hope became words on a page as we wrote the business plan. This came about initially as a course project. I was in a class in business school, and I think there are about 60 people in this class. And the deal was, if you had an idea that you wanted to pitch, keep in mind, most of these are for-profit ideas, then you would stand in front of the class, make your pitch, and you had to convince 3 others in the class to join you. And if you did, the 4 of you would write your project for the class final. So there was a guy in my class, his name was Paul. I had never actually met Paul or spoken directly with him, but I had always appreciated the comments that he made in class discussions. So the night before this pitch, I emailed Paul and said, hey, listen, here's my idea. This is what I want to do. Would you consider joining me? And did not hear back, didn't get an email back from Paul. Next day, I go to meet with my professor for that class before the class met, and told him a little bit about what I was looking to do and shared some of that. And he said, do you know Paul? Because I think Paul would be great to work with you on this. He wants to work with a Christian organization, and I think it'd be a great fit. And I thought, maybe we're onto something. And so ultimately, Paul did, in fact, join me and 2 other classmates as we wrote this business plan. A lot of time and energy put into that, and grateful for all of their hard work. And we even entered NYU's business plan competition and made semifinals in that competition. Again, this is heavily finance centric. I don't think there were any other nonprofits in the entire competition. So that was a good start. Recently, I found the original business plan, and the short version fills about 30 pages. I can't even remember how long. The full version was maybe 80 or something like that. So let's share the screen here, and I want to highlight a few things from that. Don't worry, we're not going to walk through the whole business plan, but a few things to note. So we'll take a look here. First of all, you'll notice that the logo is exactly the same color scheme and everything. This was actually already by this time had been donated by a graphic designer, a friend of ours, and we had even had some informal focus groups, various co-workers, including Eric Miller, who wasn't on staff for many years at the time, and classmates, friends, family. So this is the logo that we selected, and it hasn't changed since 2006. Now let's look at the tagline below that: family, fellowship, and fun. I still think all these things are true. And in fact, I heard somebody in one of the breakouts reference something very similar to this. Most of you will know that our tagline is "Every family deserves a legacy." And I think that was a good change. All right, let's take a look at another page now. You're going to see here a graph that's, this is a very business plan kind of thing to present. And you see here a couple things going on. There's, on the x-axis, you have multiple services. And then on the y-axis, you have spiritual focus. And what we really wanted to show was that Inheritance of Hope stands alone. Of course, at this point, Inheritance of Hope didn't do anything. We had nothing. But our idea was that Inheritance of Hope would stand alone. And the reason that I highlight this is because I think, in fact, Inheritance of Hope does stand alone, and it stands alone in the very arenas that we anticipated that it would. And that's exciting, I think. Okay, one more page from the business plan. And this is going to be our organization chart. This is what we, again, if you had looked at the organization chart that was actually in place in 2006, it would have been me, kind of part-time, and Kristen, and that would have been it. So this is the projection 5 years after we started, what we imagined our organization would look like. And it didn't look like this 5 years later, but what I want you to remember, later we're going to look at today's existing organization chart. And I think that you'll recognize some similarities to what we put into the business plan about 14 years ago. Okay, fast forwarding now. 2007, Inheritance of Hope became a nonprofit corporation with 501c3 designation from the IRS. In 2008, we hosted our first retreat. At that time, again, this is a change. It was called a family retreat. Subsequently have changed, obviously, to legacy retreat. Again, I think that was another good change. And in thinking about 2008, let me just remind you, in case you don't remember, we had the Great Recession. Mortgage-backed securities crisis led to the stock market dropping more than 50%. This is right around the time, just months after our first retreat. And by the way, we started Inheritance of Hope with absolutely no capital. So even in light of COVID and most recent events, I think it's safe to say that we started Inheritance of Hope in the worst time in the past century that you could have started a nonprofit. So as we prepare to look forward, I just want to celebrate that we've come this far and we're here. And to that end, you may have seen a short video before our kickoff yesterday, just a couple of minutes long, but a lot really packed in there. And I just want to highlight this for a minute. I love this video for many reasons. They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So in just a minute, we're going to watch it together. And in those couple of minutes that the video takes, I think that we'll be able to capture a lot of words and maybe save some words having to hear from me and just enjoy the pictures and music. I also love in this video seeing friends from my IoH family, going back all the way to that first retreat in August of 2008. I think this really captures well Inheritance of Hope's growth over time. And also, as I watch this, I think about Kristen, who made a video before she died, where she said IoH was part of her legacy and it made her proud. And when I watch this video, it makes me proud of how we've honored her and serve so many families so well. So I can't get enough of this video, so let's take a couple of minutes and watch it together now. So I certainly think that's worth celebrating together, that we've all gotten to this point together, some of us from the very beginning and some of us have joined along the way, but we couldn't be here without all of you and without all of your support and help. So I give you a high five together in your living room. Thanks. So that brings us to the present now. 50% of small businesses fail within 5 years, and that's for-profit businesses. And I read that as many as 80% of nonprofits fail within the first 5 years. So again, in a real way, we can celebrate that Inheritance of Hope is still here, and not just here, but it's thriving. We're celebrating right now another first with our e-reunion that's happening this weekend. And I want to take a moment here to thank Dina for taking the lead in this event, and Betsy's entire team, really our whole staff, all the volunteers who've come along to make this possible. A lot of people are involved in making this a success, and it's been really wonderful for me to see it come to fruition and just enjoy all of it. And can't even enjoy all of it. There's so much. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch some of the videos after the fact because there's too many. Right now we've hosted 43 retreats at this point. Obviously in 2020, we have to acknowledge COVID. We've had no in-person events since February because of that. And that's altered the way we do business in many ways. In some ways, it hasn't at all changed for us. And I think that's been important for the way we've been able to adapt. Inheritance of Hope, we have worked remotely since we started. And this has always been my idea, that I would rather have the right people working with me and for us, and much less concerned about where they are. And that's what we've thought. Now the world is maybe embracing that more so, but that's how I've thought about it all along. And so that's been really no shift for us. And I think this is the most important piece of how COVID is not different for Inheritance of Hope. And many of you will resonate with this. We already at Inheritance of Hope have an awareness that the world only now just understands uncertainty in a way that IoH families already know. IoH families are already dealing with health uncertainty, inability to travel, potentially, financial concerns and uncertainty. I feel like in many ways, the world is catching up to where we are on this. So let me update you now on our product mix. That we've added quite a few things, and many of these have been a result of us pivoting through COVID. I mentioned Legacy Retreats has been one of our signature offerings from the very beginning, along with Kristen's books. We had Kristen's books from the beginning as well. Since then, we've now added e-retreats. Some of you may have participated in those this year. Another thing that we have is our care retreats, which we didn't have at the beginning. And those are events where families who are already set to come on a retreat, already committed, flights are booked, everything is set, and then the parent dies before we can serve them. And that's heartbreaking. And before we started care retreats, we didn't have any alternative. We didn't have anything to offer. We would just have to say to these families, we're sorry that your parent died, and oh, by the way, there's no retreat for you now. And that just never felt right. So a number of years ago, we started care retreats for those families, and we've seen that grow. And I think it's been a wonderful way to address that very difficult and unique circumstance. Another thing that we've added more recently are Hope at Home groups. I know that some of you have participated in those, and I hope that those of you who haven't will consider joining us for them. We have groups right now for caregivers, life after loss, parenting with an illness, leaving a legacy. We have a seasonal event coming up for Advent, public reading of scripture, which we're introducing at this retreat. We have 2 breakouts tomorrow that you can join in to see what that's about, even during the reunion. Young adult group, teens group, kids groups. So, as you can see, we already have a lot of groups here. We're going to be adding more, and we hope that you'll participate in this. And it's a great way to build the IoH community, the IoH family, extend these relationships, grow them, and we want to do that. Let me also say this: many of these are relevant for anyone and everyone. Public reading of scripture, anybody. Advent, anybody. Leaving a legacy, everybody. These are relevant. So you don't have to be a family facing the loss of a parent or even having lost a parent for these to be relevant to you. So I encourage you to check those out. Reunions, which we're having right now. Legacy videos, this is something that we've had, you heard Luke Strebe talk about this briefly. Probably the biggest argument Kristen and I ever had was over whether we were going to have video cameras at the first retreat. She didn't want them, and I did. And so the compromise that I came up with was, I'll tell you what if we let the families have access to these cameras and they can record whatever they want? And she was sold then. She said, okay, I'll acquiesce that we can have video cameras to record this event. So legacy videos have always been part of our retreats, but now there's something that's available because we're doing remote work through Zoom. We can record anybody and everybody in the comfort of their own home pretty much at any time. So that's something, again, that's relevant to everybody. You can, and I encourage all of you to take advantage of that, whether you're recording these for grandchildren, children, both, friends and family. That's relevant and available to everyone now. We now have team gatherings through Zoom weekly that Jill is hosting, and I encourage you to join those for a great time of fellowship weekly on Fridays. We're adding a memorial service to commemorate the legacies of those in our family who we have lost and want to celebrate their lives. So as you can see, we've really grown the products since we started, and that's the current day offering. I want to take a minute now and talk about our present day staff. And this is where I want you to think back to the original business plan and that organization chart that I showed you. Our staff today is 16 on our team, and we also have an intern currently working with us. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron for a minute and let him talk about our matrix organizational structure.
Okay, thanks, Derek. I'll get my screen sharing again. As I'm doing that, definitely appreciate all of the really fun chat that's happening. Lots of encouragements and enthusiastic comments. Thank you all for those. And reminder with the chat too, put questions there. After these prepared remarks, you will have the chance to pose any question you want to Derek. And while he's on with us this afternoon, it's a chance to hear from him about what interests you. So by all means, be putting your questions there, be thinking about your questions, and we'll look forward to really engaging on your interests before this webinar is over. So looking at the chart, as Derek mentioned, this is our present day. I'm zoomed out right now so you can see kind of the overview. Visually is a little different than the chart that he showed from the original business plan. And that is on purpose. This is what is known as a matrix organizational structure. And we've gone to this in order to do exactly what Derek just described, which is to serve families in many different ways. So let me zoom in just a little. We're not going to go too detailed. But on the left in these green boxes, we have these different offerings, the different services, even products, you could say, in the business sense, the things that we deliver to families. And we have staff now who really take the lead. Somebody is leading each product so that each product gets great attention and is really the best that it can be for each family that receives it. At the same time, our main leadership team is represented across the top, these purple boxes. And these are functions that any organization, any business has to do well to succeed. Things like administration and marketing, fundraising and finance. And so we have a leadership team that takes great ownership over these major functional areas, as well as two that are more distinctive to IoH, which is resources and relationships. So there's things that are distinctive to what we do, but at the same time, this is business planning that any group would have to do in order to really plan well for its future. And it does represent a great need for collaboration because you have kind of the vertical sense of the functions needing to go well. You also have the horizontal sense of the products needing to go well. And all these things overlap. And so our team has to continue learning to collaborate and work in a very cross-functional sense so that things turn out really great for the families. The reunion is a perfect example. It's one product, but it involves all the functions. It involves relationships, admin, finance, resources, marketing, all of it. And so it's a really tremendous team effort that's creating what we are enjoying right now today and this weekend, as well as the many products that Derek has just described. Another note on staff, we do work remote like Derek said. We also have staff literally coast to coast, which is pretty fun to think about. We have people in New York, North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, and you keep going west, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, Colorado, California. I might have even missed some, but truly across the country, we have really outstanding people. And this is the way that we are working as a team right now. So it's fun to see some of the concepts that are still the same from that original business plan. At the same time, things that have developed and become just more sophisticated, really, as the business of IoH continues to take shape and grow. So just a few highlights there, and I will stop the screen share and hand it back to you, Derek.
All right, thanks. I thought it'd be important for you to just take a quick look at that. Well, no chat with the CEO would be complete without a little bit of talk of finance. So let's take a minute here to talk about our current financial position. Again, not going to go into great depth, but I just want to emphasize that you all, thanks to you all, Inheritance of Hope is doing well right now. Giving has been strong. We have great partnerships, including Kendra Scott and Grace and Mercy Foundation, who you heard from last night. Also Dillard's, Harold's, just to name a few, many more, and many great individual partners, donors who are supporting our ministry and our work. And we couldn't be doing it without you. So as we celebrate where we've come from and where we are and where we're going, I just want to acknowledge and express my gratitude for you all, again, in helping us be here, being part of our family. Over the most recent 12 months, Inheritance of Hope's revenue has grown 25%. And over the 12 months prior to that, revenue grew by 30%. So things are going well in spite of a difficult time. And again, that's thanks to you. All right, now, finally, what you've been promised, let's talk about a little bit about the future. But spoiler alert, this is just going to be the next year right now. So more to come. Let's talk about the next year. We are going to be focused on implementing our new matrix organizational structure that Aaron talked about. He hit only the high points, but it's pretty complex. It requires a lot of communication among many different people and with information flowing in many different directions. And ultimately, we believe it's going to be very effective and efficient. And we also are mindful that it's going to take some work for us to figure it out and to be really streamlined with that. So that's a priority over the next year. We're going to be developing a plan for integrating in-person events with online events. Right now, we have no choice. The world is largely shut down, and families that we serve in particular are not going to be traveling to in-person events. And that doesn't mean that that's going to stay that way. So we're going to be looking at a plan for how do we integrate these two things. And I feel fortunate that we kind of have this opportunity right now where, while we don't have a choice, we have a little time to work on that. Over the next year, we're going to be establishing and refining the new ways that we've created to serve families. I just very quickly listed all of the new offerings, Hope at Home, all of these things, and it's a lot. And so, again, it's going to take us some time to really refine those and make them as excellent as we want them to be. Another thing over the next year, and this is arguably even beyond the next year, I believe that it's important to maintain 6 months of operating cash. Our board does as well. As we continue to grow, of course, as our budgets grow, then the amount of that that number grows along with it. And the reason for having a strong cash position isn't for the purpose of having cash. What we're interested in is inspiring hope in families. So the importance of this is a few things that I'll just mention. Our cash flows are highly cyclical, largely skewed to the last 3 months of the calendar year, and therefore, it's in order for us to plan effectively, we need about 6 months lead time in order to function well operationally, so that our team can plan. And if we don't have that cash position, it makes it difficult to know if we can commit to move forward with various operational plans. And finally, that position allows us to weather unforeseen changes, like, for example, COVID. Last thing I'm going to say about over the next year, and this is coming up very soon, you will have heard this referenced yesterday, probably in our kickoff, but just want to emphasize it. Giving Tuesday is coming up on December 1st. This is a big day for us, the biggest day of the year in terms of fundraising. Again, we're looking for 200 fundraising pages to be created. We're hoping, we'd love to reach that goal even during this reunion if we can. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to get out and set up that page. It's very simple to do. Our goal in terms of dollars on Giving Tuesday, again, December 1st, $300,000, which is a slight increase over what we raised last year. We're mindful that, in the uncertainty of this climate, we're not quite sure what to expect, but we're just trusting that that goal is going to be blown out of the water. So 200 pages, $300,000, help us get there on Giving Tuesday. Okay, now, finally, let's talk about the longer term future. Maybe this is what you came looking for. So I think the biggest thing that I would say in terms of my vision for Inheritance of Hope's future, and you heard me reference this yesterday in our opening, in my welcome, People have always asked me, did I imagine Inheritance of Hope growing this big? And really, it has always been, yes, I have. And that continues to be true. So my big vision is for Inheritance of Hope to be top of mind. As much as we've grown, so many people still don't know about Inheritance of Hope. I want it to be, imagine that a family is getting this diagnosis. They're in a doctor's office, and the doctor is going to tell them this horrible news that they have a terminal diagnosis. I want that doctor to be armed with the information to say, and here's something hopeful for you. You need to look at Inheritance of Hope. Check them out and have them help you. I can tell you right now that doctors would welcome that because they hate delivering that news. And we want to serve those families. We know they're there. So as much as we've grown again, and it's a lot, and a lot more people are aware of Inheritance of Hope, we have a long way to go to get to that kind of awareness. Mostly now we're found still by family referrals. And so we've got some marketing work to do. This is a big vision. In fact, I would even compare it, maybe sometimes people kind of compare Inheritance of Hope to Make-A-Wish. That's the first thing that comes to their mind. It's like, oh, so that's kind of a Make-A-Wish for adults. And I have mixed feelings about that because on the one hand, I think, well, it's really much more than that because it's not just a trip. It's so much more in terms of community and all these things that are valuable. Right now, the world doesn't know that. So I'd like for us to have an awareness on par with Make-A-Wish so that people will no longer compare us to Make-A-Wish, but maybe even the converse would be true, that they'll say to Make-A-Wish, oh, so you guys are like Inheritance of Hope. That's where I see us going. This national brand awareness is something also that I would say that up until recently, maybe even this year, we've been a little bit afraid, to be honest, to pursue it. And I think back to one of my professors. I was all about, this is again like probably 2008 or something time frame. I'm all about promoting Inheritance of Hope and how do we get out on national TV and spread the word. And one of my professors says to me, "Are you sure that's not the worst thing that could happen?" And I thought, man, that's kind of offensive. It was really stunning to me to hear that at that time. And I'm sure I pushed back. But now I can look back and say, yeah, maybe at that point it would have been the worst thing. Now I don't think it's the worst thing. In fact, I think it's what we need. I think we're ready for that. We have a lot of things to offer families. We've grown our staff. I believe we're ready to blow the doors off, and the time has come. I do think we're going to need a bigger marketing staff. I know we're going to need a bigger marketing staff to achieve that goal, and that's something that we're going to be working toward. I also think about the future in terms of maximizing what we already do have. We have Consider It Pure Joy. This is a great book. Hopefully you've read it. If you haven't, you need to. Kristen's autobiography that tells about her personal story, our family story, and the genesis of Inheritance of Hope. Trains Rust for Children, a wonderful story about how to share the challenges of terminal illness in a way that is relatable to children. The next book you probably haven't even heard of, many of you, Bunny Goes to Chemotherapy. This might be, this is one of my favorites, and I certainly think has the most potential in terms of marketability. And this is just what happened here is our oldest daughter, Ashley, went down to New York City, to Manhattan, to Sloan Kettering, to go to Kristen's chemotherapy appointment, and took her favorite stuffed bunny rabbit. And when they got home, realized that Ashley had left, Bunny was the name of the stuffed bunny, had left Bunny at Sloan Kettering. And this was stressful at the time. And it gave Kristen, though, the idea to write about chemotherapy through the lens, through the eyes of this stuffed animal. A very winsome story, and really debunks something that's very scary. The idea of it alone is scary to us as adults, and children in particular, really adults as well, will conjure up scary images about things that are uncertain. An example of this relating to radiation, our son Luke one time went down to New York City at this time for a radiation treatment that Kristen had. And so he knew radiation and he had enough of a sense of that. But after it was over, we learned that he was disappointed that Kristen was not going to actually be shot with some kind of ray gun, futuristic Buck Rogers ray gun of some kind, because that's what he pictured happening at radiation. So anyway, Bunny Goes to Chemotherapy is something that we have already done, made, ready to go, that I'd like to take more advantage of. We've got a wonderful blog that Angie writes, that our marketing team puts together, highlighting wonderful stories of families and the work that we're doing. This is another thing that I think we need to get more exposure on. And we have a wonderful network of families, IoH families, that I think that we can take more advantage of to help with these things, whether that be volunteering for Hope at Home, attending Hope at Home sessions and encouraging others. We have many e-reunion presenters right now who are taking part either in front of the camera or behind the scenes to make this possible. Volunteers, ambassadors who help us spread the word, certainly donors who make this all possible. And maybe you have some ideas about how either you can personally get involved or other ways that we can take advantage of the growing IoH family to reach this vision of really being ubiquitous, the Inheritance of Hope name being understood and recognized by everyone. Another thing that I've long had a vision of with Inheritance of Hope is to put an umbrella over the entire storm that families face. And you can even see glimpses of that here at the reunion this weekend. So in addition to spiritual, emotional, and relational coverage, which I think we're doing pretty well on those elements, I want to see us be able to grow into legal help, wills and estate planning, financial advising, insurance, so many just practical burdens that families bear when they're going through the situation our families face. And I want to see us grow that. And again, perhaps you're a professional in one of these fields or you have some ideas about how we can best do that. We'd love to hear from you. Over time, again, we know that we're going to need to grow staff to do some of these things. But I also look back and celebrate how far we've come and how big our staff is now in order to be able to achieve some of these things. I referenced this earlier, but let me just reiterate on the legacy videos. This is something that's available to all. So I encourage you to pursue this because it's relevant to everyone. So I'm thrilled to share in this e-reunion with everyone and all of those firsts that are yet to come with each of you. And let's keep pushing to the summit together. And now we'll take a minute or however long it takes, I guess, to field your questions.
Yeah, thanks so much, Derek. Really fun to hear your stories. It is amazing to think back of all that we've come from, as you noted, and really exciting, the things that you envision, big things yet to come. So thanks for doing that. We have gotten some questions in the chat. I'm going to do my best to keep tabs on those and give time to as many questions as we can. Before I do that, I do want to give a shout out. I saw Mark Trinkle's name in here. And so Mark, my goodness, all the way back from the very first retreat before they were called Legacy Retreats in Lake George. Really fun to see your name, Mark, and thanks very much for reconnecting with us here today. That is just super cool. So one of the questions I saw in the chat, Derek, this is a great question. It came from Rebecca Adam, and if Chris and Troy are there too, much love to you guys. But she said, how can we help more? What are the ways that we can help IoH?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate that question. Well, I think just being involved. I know, for example, that you're attending a group that Matri has started, the earliest phase, almost like a test phase of public reading of scripture. So that's a way that you can get involved. And not only you on this on this breakout session, but your families, your networks, invite people in. You know, if we're going to get to the point where everybody knows who Inheritance of Hope is and what we do, we are absolutely going to need your help to do that, to help us spread the word. And I think that starts with you being involved, understanding what we do, understanding these new products that we have, and participating and inviting others. So certainly your participation and involvement and is a great way. Obviously, along those lines, financial support is a great need of ours in order to be able to achieve this vision. And again, here that might be your personal giving, it might be your company matching or partnering with Inheritance of Hope in some way, or it may be you setting up a fundraising page for Giving Tuesday, as we mentioned. So many ways for you to get involved in fundraising. And again, it could just, all of that is about spreading the word, just being engaged and involved. So those are a couple right off the top of my head. Of course, volunteering, another way to engage with us. I don't know, Aaron, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I think that's good. You know, the way we often put that is tell your story. Each person has great stories. We've heard some of Derek's just now. Rebecca, you certainly have very powerful IoH stories, and I suspect everybody on this webinar does. Just by being part of the reunion this weekend, you'll have stories. So yeah, sharing what matters to you is a tremendous way to be helpful, and kind of a fun one too. All right, so next question. This is a good question. Jen Tyne is just getting right to it. You know, with all the racial tension, racial discussions, things that are in our culture right now, she asked about, you know, how does IoH as an organization, and she mentioned the board as well. You know, what are our commitments? How are we thinking about race and equality?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Jen, for that question. It's definitely something that we're mindful of. It's something that we're thinking about. I would say from the very beginning, it's always been our desire to serve all families, and I think that's something that we have done. There's no question we have done that. We have served all families from all different backgrounds, all different religious beliefs, so many different ways. I think that we're representing diversity in terms of families that we serve. And at the same time, we're mindful that, you know, maybe there are communities that we don't connect with, that we don't have access to. And this is where I would appeal to you all to help us, because all of us together have a much bigger community than, for example, our staff alone, me, or even our board. So as we think about how we might expand our reach into some of these communities that we want to serve and have always wanted to serve, I think that's an area where we could use your help for sure, in terms of either helping us connect directly, or you doing that by sharing that story. And we want to do that. You know, we're also mindful in the same way about just in terms of our board being thoughtful about this. So I think that's what it boils down to for me, is that it's our desire to do that, and we are recognizing in some ways our limitations, and we welcome your help in helping us get our footprint into some of those places that we might not have it right now.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Related to telling your story, another question that arose was, you know, materials to share. Are there things that we might have? I'm not sure if it was more hard copy or online, but perhaps even in the chat here, we can get links to maybe online materials to share. But if somebody wanted, you know, flyers, pamphlets, do we have things like that that could help people in telling the story?
Yeah, I think we definitely, I know we do, and I know that we're working on growing some. I'm struggling a little bit with this question because, you know, you guys are right now kind of insiders of insiders in this breakout, and I don't want to steal any thunder, but let me just say that there's a surprise coming tomorrow, And I'm not going to steal any thunder. I'm not going to say any more than that. But Betsy's going to be sharing some news that I think will be directly applicable to this question in terms of helping you with resources. I think already our website is a great place for you to go. I mentioned earlier the blog and Facebook posts that you can share, LinkedIn. These are areas where the resources are out there already. I would also say if there's something specifically that you're looking for, we in our marketing team are, they pride ourselves on being nimble in trying to help with some of those things. For example, if you have a big presentation for your company or something like that that has a particular, very specific need, then we welcome that. But even like the boxes that you guys received, right? Lots of ways for you to, friends come over to your house once COVID is over, serve them a beverage in your IoH cup and let the conversations flow. So many different ways to use, wear your IoH shirts, all of these things.
Yeah, very good. And you see that Eric Miller, who is our marketing director, has put his own email address in the chat. So he's a great one to reach out to for really specific material requests or even ideas. Another question, let me see. Oh, this actually was a double question. This was from Hannah Liljegren, who, by the way, is a multi-year Giving Tuesday rock star. If not the top fundraiser, right at the top. Tons of excellent work on Giving Tuesday. So yeah, way to go, Hannah. And one of her questions, first one, Derek, she's asking if we've thought about medical schools in terms of an opportunity to partner there and spreading awareness, building connections, and maybe that being a network of partners that could be beneficial.
Yeah, great question, Hannah. Thanks, and thanks for your support on Giving Tuesday. I look forward to seeing what you can come up with this year. In terms of medical schools, I would say, we were scheduled to present some of our team, people who are all of whom are involved in this reunion, for a social workers national conference. I know this isn't exactly getting to what you're thinking, but in a similar vein, trying to put the information out there in the hands of the people who are going to be delivering news to families and helping families on the ground. So unfortunately, that event was canceled, but that's a direction that we're going. And I think medical schools also have a relevance. I think this is an area where, perhaps there are people in our network who may have connections. One thing that I've learned over time is just calling somebody out of the blue, especially if you're not a known entity, usually doesn't go very far. It's hard to even get to the person who's the decision maker in that setting. Ironically enough, even when you're offering something, you might be surprised how challenging it can be to get on somebody's radar. So I would again appeal to you all, if you have a connection in a medical school, if you have a connection in some kind of community in the medical world that might help us have a forum or a platform to share this, we welcome that. And I think that's a great idea for us to look into as well, Hannah. So thank you.
Yeah, so that was one of Hannah's great questions. Her second, I think, is also really thoughtful. So you described a lot of growth, Derek, and certainly we're excited to grow and serve more families. So Hannah asks, how are we thinking about making sure IoH doesn't begin to feel corporate, not losing what makes it special as it does grow, and maybe as there's more and more people, more administration, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's another great question, making me think here, Hannah. So I recognize that in many ways, we're talking here about business plans and matrix organizations, maybe more of a heavy kind of business framework format than often our communication would be. And let me just tell you that that's not new and that's not different in terms of internally. This is how we've thought from the get-go. And it's vital that we do. To tell you the truth, and I'm going to get to your question, but one of the most offensive questions that people ever ask me, and I hear this more than you would imagine, is, you should really run Inheritance of Hope like a business. And I always think, oh, I see. So we're already doing that, right? Now that doesn't mean that we don't think that that everything you raise is vital. That's why we want to run it like a business, so that we can continue to do it, so that we can grow to serve more families. It's kind of like the 6-month cash. That's not the end game. It's a means to what we want to achieve, which is to inspire hope in more and more families. So I hope that you can see that this has been a very kind of more businessy presentation by the CEO that you wouldn't usually hear unless I was sitting in your living room, maybe. But I have always thought this way, and so this isn't really, it doesn't represent a change. Now, to the question of growth and how we manage that and continue to be personal and authentic, I think a very valid question there. And I would say, first and foremost, starts with the people. Like I said about, not really caring so much where people live in terms of our staff. I think that's number one for me, is having the right people in place, right people on our board, on our staff, volunteers, our leadership team, everybody who's involved in the Inheritance of Hope. We can't cut corners on that in order to maintain our culture. As we grow, we are actually thinking about our culture so that we can do just exactly what you're raising, which is to maintain that personal feel, the authenticity of what we want to do for families. Because while the business side has been true from the beginning, so has our desire to connect, to build a community, to be part of the IoH family. And that hasn't changed either. So I think it comes down to people and our culture, and maintaining that, making sure that we're not putting growth in front of how we serve, but growth for the purpose of serving well.
Yeah, thanks, Derek, and thanks, Hannah. Both of those are really thoughtful questions. I'll just reiterate what Derek said. It's not new that we're thinking about business and structure and finance. Doing those well is how we are able to be very personal when it comes time to do the deliverables. So there's what you see, and there's everything that goes into what you see. And we're just continuing to think about both very, very well. So next question, this is a different style of question, a much more personal one, but I think a very good one. So Derek, just get ready. This is from Lisa Fields. And she says, Derek, how are you doing personally?
Well, Lisa, right now, in the midst of this reunion, I can't be doing any better. This has been the most exciting, I mean, truly, and Aaron kind of knows, you can tell in the way he's framed this question, this isn't really my wheelhouse, but I can very excitedly tell you that this reunion is exceeding my expectations. You all being here, taking the time to listen to me, attending our events, the speakers that we have, like this right here is to me a culmination of a vision that really is, I see as a celebration. So right now I'm in a very high spirit because I am celebrating this, and really our whole team is. What may be a little bit different is this is something I've been envisioning for a really long time. And so to see it come to fruition is very exciting. And part of that is right before I got on this, I'm watching my children and a few other IoH rock stars, among many, many, many rock stars, talking about how well they're doing, how Inheritance of Hope has helped them grow. I mean, as a dad, as a leader of an organization, it doesn't get much better than that. So I'm doing great. And you may not know this, I don't know, but got remarried 3 years ago. So that's another a great thing in my life.
Yeah, really good question. Thanks, Lisa. And then she also said, do you have any recent pictures of your kids?
Well, this one's not so recent. I guess there's one behind me, but maybe we'll have to, some of my team may have to help me out there, and maybe we can post one somewhere. I don't know how to. I do not have one that I can show you right now. This is my new wife is right up here, and that's a recent picture. And Matria, by the way, another plug here for PRS. She's the one who's leading the public reading of scripture sessions tomorrow that we have.
Yeah, great question. There's pictures. Somebody can definitely track those down for you, Lisa. So we'll make sure to follow up there. We're getting a lot of good questions. We're just going to keep rolling here, Derek. Josh Bloss, one of our rock star volunteers for sure, is asking, do we think we might try to have more retreats or bigger retreats going forward?
Well, of course, my first answer is, why does it have to be either or? I would say it's both and, in terms of growth. But I have always, I think, logistically, there's more limitations on how many events we can have than there are on how big an event can be. And so I would say that I would put more of an emphasis when we go back to in-person events as we growing the size of those events, as we have been doing already. And this gets back to Hannah's question, to bring it back to that. This is a way that we grow and maintain quality. So the overall size of these events has gotten bigger, much bigger already, and we anticipate getting bigger in the future. But we maintain the intimacy in the small groups. Those have not changed in size. And in fact, the actual benefit of growing size is those young people's groups actually get tighter in terms of age range. Imagine if we only had one, if we have 8 families, our first retreat, all the children of all ages are in one group. As we have more and more families, we can tighten that range and really speak more to where they are at that point. So that's how I see it. We grow in size per the event. I think over time, ultimately, we'll also grow the number of events. Of course, now we're also building in the online portion of this, which, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be working to integrate those two. But growing the size of the event first and foremost, and then secondarily, the number, while maintaining the quality.
Yep, good question and an exciting answer. Josh also said, do we have thoughts about maybe new retreat locations in places around the country?
Well, I would say that there's some ideas that I've had in mind forever. And a lot of this comes down to partnership. And again, maybe this comes down to some of you helping us open doors. But the really nice thing about our current model is that we're very flexible. And we can host a retreat, in pretty much anywhere that is interesting for families, that families want to go. And what we all know also is that the real value in what families are getting at a retreat has much less to do with where it is than it does to do with what we're offering and the people who are doing the offering. So we're open to ideas here, and really the sky's the limit. So if you can help us with some partnerships, we'd love to hear from you.
Good question. We have a really tremendous staff, which I've been able to mention in a few sessions. They are feeding me a beautiful picture of Derek and his family. So I'm going to, back to Lisa's question, I'm going to try and see if I can get this where everybody can get at least a little bit of a look-see here. So that was at the wedding about 3 years ago, as Derek mentioned. So kids who were very little when Kristen was diagnosed and become pretty impressive young adults, which some of you may have just heard in a session earlier today. But many thanks to our team for being on the ball, as always, and providing a really excellent picture there. All right, questions are still coming, and they're good. So Derek, Patrick Farmer, who we all know, if you've ever met Patrick, you will never forget him. Great to have you here, Patrick. He's asking about matching gifts. And if you want to get a company or somebody to do a matching gift, is there a certain information to use, a certain approach? And he says, especially as a Christian organization, are there ways to go about it that, that are more helpful?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick, for that question. I would say, I've started to say, should I call you the little stallion, as you named yourself in the group last night? Couldn't decide if I wanted to, but there it is. Great question. I would say Audra on our team is a great person to reach out to. Audra and Spencer are on our kind of a fundraising team. And so, it'd be Audra at inheritanceofhope.org, Spencer at inheritanceofhope.org. They would love to hear from you. And the reason that I'm referring to them is because it's not always a one size fits all in terms of how companies give, how they match, how they operate. They even have different mechanisms for how that works. So, but it's definitely a great way. If a company is willing to match and you can get 100% boost on a gift, then that's definitely something that we want to try to capitalize on. In terms of the Christian piece of that question, generally speaking, maybe not, again, not one size fits all. Generally speaking, an organization will say that they will allow us to match, even as a Christian organization, as long as we're going to serve anyone and everyone with it as we do. So for the most part, at least as it comes to matching gifts from a company, that's not a barrier. If we would see that be an issue, it would be more in terms of larger scale partnerships, maybe.
Okay, yeah, it's a great question, Patrick, and hopefully you see Audra's in here in the chat saying she would love, all caps, to talk about exactly that with you. And so, yeah, appreciate you raising the question, and Audra will no doubt be glad to talk more about it with you. Ned Harrison has a question. We're having a lot of great sessions and breakouts here. Will they be able to see these after the reunion?
Yes, definitely. I don't know exactly how or where, but maybe that'll be put in the chat now, or if it's not known, it will become available to you when it is.
Yeah, very good question, and yeah, the answer is yes for sure. Timing maybe not nailed out with detail, but we're glad you're enjoying the material, and we will be glad to share it as well. We had a question from James Harrison, who got the privilege to do some of the teen hangout with last night. I'm not a teen, but I like hanging with the teens. James is asking, how old do you have to be to volunteer? So another pretty specific question.
Well, James, the simple answer to that question is 16. And you can volunteer, you can sign up on our website to volunteer, you can submit your application there. And we always love to have families who have served in the past coming back to serve, and even wanting to serve is a blessing.
Yep, great question. And we look forward to those who are interested in applying to volunteer. It's on our website as a easy online application there. All right, I've got to watch our time a little bit. Very grateful for a lot of good questions, and certainly, Derek, appreciate your availability today to take live questions and give some really fun answers on a pretty wide range of topics. Maybe a question to end with here is a lot of people have been enjoying this reunion. When's the next one?
Well, that's a great question. I think we don't know yet is the answer, but I think the success of the event, as I mentioned earlier, is exciting me and energizing our team. So, we're all about IoH family. We're all about connections. And so I think it's safe to say that you will see another one. Exactly when, too early to say, but I'm glad to hear the interest, and I know that I'm looking forward to it myself.
Yeah, very good. As Derek mentioned, it's been a thrill. It's been a thrill. So there will be more to come. At this point, we'll start to wrap up a little. We'll put some announcements in the chat for everybody to get some key links about Giving Tuesday, Hope at Home groups, the photo booth, family game night tonight. A lot of fun still to come. So yeah, it's coming into the chat, and just want to say thank you. Thanks everybody for attending the session this afternoon. Thanks for a lot of great questions, really good questions there. And mostly thanks for caring about the future of Inheritance of Hope. We are very glad for what we have done already, but especially excited about what is yet to come. And as Derek mentioned, that's possible because of you. So thank you for being part of that. Looking forward to that with us and making it possible with us. So Derek, again, thanks to you. We appreciate your time to share directly and personally with everyone here. And with that, make your Giving Tuesday page. Have a great afternoon and evening, and enjoy a lot of reunion fun still to come. Thanks everyone, and bye for now.